What if the reason you wake up at night to pee has almost nothing to do with the water you drank before bed? What if the real cause began hours earlier, hidden in your meals, your legs, and the way your aging body handles fluid while you sleep? What if the reason you keep waking up at night to use the bathroom is not the glass of water you had before bed? What if the real problem started much earlier, while you were eating lunch, sitting in a chair, taking your afternoon medication, or trying to be good by drinking water at the wrong time of day? That is the part that stopped me. Because for years, I thought nighttime bathroom trips were simple. Too much water in the evening, too many trips at night. So the solution seemed obvious. Drink less before bed. But then someone close to me said something I could not forget. They said, "I know I'm supposed to drink water. My doctor keeps telling me to stay hydrated. But every time I do, I'm awake at night. Sometimes once, sometimes twice. And by morning, I feel like I never really slept." There was something painful in that sentence. Not dramatic, not loud, just tired. And I think that is what makes this problem so quietly frustrating. It does not always look serious from the outside. Nobody sees the interrupted sleep, the slow walk to the bathroom in the dark, the frustration of crawling back into bed and wondering if sleep will come back. Nobody sees the way one small nighttime habit can start taking over a person's entire day. So people start making private little deals with themselves. No water after dinner. Then no water after 5 p.m. Then maybe less water in the afternoon. And before long, someone who was only trying to protect their sleep is now spending the whole day slightly thirsty, slightly cautious, slightly afraid of a glass of water. Hi, welcome to Healthy Aging Canada. And before we go further, if this kind of practical, honest conversation about aging, sleep, and everyday health is useful to you, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps support the work here and gives us more reason to keep making videos that turn confusing health problems into something you can actually understand and act on. Now, here is the question that pulled me into this topic. Why do so many people over 60 feel trapped between two pieces of advice that both seem true? On one side, they are told to drink enough water, stay hydrated, protect the kidneys, support circulation, help digestion, avoid dizziness, keep the body functioning. That advice is not wrong. But on the other side, their lived experience says something else. Every time they drink more, the night punishes them. So they begin to believe that staying healthy comes at the cost of sleeping well. And I want to challenge that assumption. Not because water does not matter at night. It does. A large glass of water right before bed can absolutely make things worse for some people. But the mistake is thinking the story begins there. The body does not handle water like a sink drain. You do not drink, absorb, empty, and reset in one clean cycle. The body moves water through blood, tissues, hormones, kidneys, salt balance, and gravity. It holds fluid in some places. It releases fluid later. It changes how much urine it makes depending on time of day, age, medications, sodium intake, circulation, sleep quality, and even what has been collecting in the legs. That is why this problem can feel so mysterious. You may stop drinking at night and still wake up. You may have only a few sips after dinner and still wake up. You may blame your bladder when the real story began hours before your head ever touched the pillow. The way I see it now, nighttime urination after 60 is often not just a bedtime problem. It is a full-day fluid management problem. And that changes everything. Because if the problem is only water before bed, then the only solution is restriction. Drink less. Tolerate thirst. Hope for the best. But if the problem is how the body manages water across the whole day, then we have more intelligent options. We can look at when fluid enters. We can look at what makes the body hold onto extra fluid. We can look at where that stored fluid goes when the body lies flat at night. Those three pieces are the real puzzle. And once you see them, the nightly bathroom trip stops feeling random. It starts looking like a signal. Not always a dangerous signal. Not always a disease. But a signal that the timing, the sodium, the circulation, or the daily rhythm may be working against sleep. So if you have been cutting back on water and still waking up, I do not want you to feel like you failed. You may simply have been given an incomplete map. In the next few minutes, I want to walk through that map with you. Not as a lecture. As someone who once thought the answer was obvious, then realized the body was doing something far more interesting and far more fixable than I had imagined. Because the water may not be the enemy. The real question is what your body does with it before you ever fall asleep. And once I stopped blaming the last glass of water before bed, the first thing I had to rethink was not how much water we drink, but when we ask the body to handle it. The idea is called front-loading your hydration. And I'll be honest, when I first heard it, it sounded almost too simple to take seriously. Drink earlier, taper later. That was it. But the more I watched older adults struggle with this, the more I realized simple does not always mean shallow. Sometimes the most useful health advice is not the advice that sounds impressive. It is the advice that finally matches how real life works. Most people do not wake up and plan to drink too much at night. It just happens. Morning is busy. There are medications, breakfast, appointments, phone calls, errands, maybe taking care of a spouse, maybe helping grandchildren, maybe just moving slowly because the body does not start as quickly as it used to. Coffee happens. Tea happens. A few small sips happen. But real water often gets postponed. Then the afternoon arrives and thirst catches up. The mouth feels dry. Energy dips. Maybe someone remembers, I didn't drink enough today, so they try to fix it later. A glass in the afternoon. Another with dinner. Maybe another while watching television. Maybe a larger glass with evening pills. And then, at midnight, the body presents the bill. That is why front-loading matters. It is not about drinking less water. It is about giving the body the water earlier, when there is still enough daytime left to process it. The morning and early afternoon are your best windows. If you use them well, the evening does not have to become a desperate catch-up period. A practical rhythm might look like this. A full glass after waking. More water with breakfast. Another glass in mid-morning. Water with lunch. Some continued hydration into early afternoon. Then, after about 3 p.m., the direction changes. You do not slam the door shut on fluids. You simply begin to taper. That word is important. Tapering is not starving the body of water. Tapering is not sitting there thirsty and proud because you are being disciplined. Tapering means the main hydration work is already done, so the evening can be quieter. You can still take small sips. You can still drink if you are genuinely thirsty. You can still take medication safely with water. But what you do not want is to spend the evening making up for a dry morning. The reason this matters becomes clearer when you look at what the kidneys are supposed to do at night. At night, the body normally increases a hormone called vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. I think of it as the body's nighttime message to the kidneys. It says, slow down. Concentrate the urine. Do not fill the bladder so quickly. In a younger body, that signal tends to be stronger and more reliable. The kidneys get the message. Urine becomes more concentrated. Volume goes down. Sleep is protected. But with age, that nighttime signal may weaken. The kidneys may not slow down as much as they once did. So for some people over 60, the kidneys keep producing urine closer to a daytime pace, even when the person is trying to sleep. That one detail changed how I understood the whole problem. Because if the kidneys are no longer getting as strong of a nighttime slow-down signal, then a late fluid load becomes much more disruptive. It is like handing someone a stack of work right before they are supposed to close the office. The work still has to go somewhere. And in this case, it goes through the kidneys, into the bladder, and eventually into your sleep. So front-loading is not a trick. It is a way of respecting the body's new timing. You are saying, let's do the heavier fluid work while I am awake. That also means the evening should not feel like a punishment. I know some people become almost afraid of water after dinner. They measure every sip. They avoid water even when their mouth is dry. They wake up with dark urine and bladder irritation, then wonder why they still feel urgency. That is not the goal. When fluids are cut too aggressively, urine can become concentrated, and concentrated urine can irritate the bladder. For some people, that irritation creates urgency, even when the bladder is not truly full. So now they are not waking because they drank too much. They are waking because the bladder is uncomfortable. This is why I keep coming back to the same distinction. Timing, not restriction. A good plan should leave someone better hydrated during the day and less overloaded at night. It should not turn water into something frightening. If I were helping someone in my own family try this, I would not start with perfection. I would start with visibility. Put water where the morning happens, near the coffee maker, beside the breakfast plate, on the counter where medications are taken, somewhere the eyes naturally land before noon. Then I would look for the catch-up pattern. Is most of the water being consumed after 4 p.m.? Is dinner the biggest drinking window? Is television time when the large glass appears? That is the pattern to shift. Not all at once, just enough to let the body notice. And I would track it for at least 2 weeks, because one night does not tell the truth. A salty dinner, a hot day, poor sleep, stress, or an unusual schedule can change one night. What matters is the trend. Does the first wake-up move later? Do the trips become less frequent? Does the person feel less thirsty in the evening because they finally drank earlier? Those are the signs I would watch for. Front-loading may sound ordinary, but for many older adults, it is the first moment the problem becomes manageable. Not because it solves everything, but because it stops the evening from carrying the entire burden of the day. And once that piece is in place, the next question becomes even more interesting. Why is the body holding on to so much fluid in the first place? And once you begin moving hydration earlier in the day, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why is the body holding on to so much fluid in the first place? That question took me somewhere I did not expect at first. Not to the bedroom, not to the bathroom, not even to the water bottle. It took me to the plate. Because the second part of this problem is sodium. Most of us just call it salt, but I think the word salt can be misleading because it makes people picture someone shaking too much salt over dinner. And yes, that can matter. But in real life, especially in Canada and the United States, the bigger issue is usually not the salt shaker. It is the sodium we never really notice. The sodium in bread, the sodium in canned soup, the sodium in deli meat, the sodium in frozen meals that look convenient and harmless, the sodium in salad dressing, bottled sauces, crackers, takeout, restaurant meals, and foods that do not even taste especially salty. That is what makes this piece so easy to miss. A person can say, "I don't eat that much salt," and they may be telling the truth as they understand it. They may not add salt at the table. They may not like salty snacks. They may even believe they are eating fairly carefully. But then you look at the day as a whole. Toast in the morning, a sandwich at lunch, soup or a packaged meal at dinner, sauce on the side that was not really on the side, a few crackers, maybe a restaurant meal once or twice a week. Nothing looks dramatic. Nothing looks reckless. But quietly, the body has been receiving a message all day. Hold on to more fluid. That is what sodium does. Sodium pulls water with it. When sodium intake is higher than the body needs, the body tends to keep more water in the system. Some of that water stays in the tissues. Some of it contributes to that heavy, swollen, puffy feeling people may notice by evening. And eventually, that retained fluid has to be processed. This is where nighttime urination becomes more than a drinking problem. Because if sodium made the body hold extra fluid all day, the bladder at night may simply be receiving the delayed consequences. That idea changed how I looked at the problem. It made me less interested in asking, "Did you drink too much before bed?" and more interested in asking, "What was your body carrying into the evening?" I think that is a much more useful question. And it is also a kinder question. Because a lot of older adults blame themselves for waking up. They think they have no discipline. They think they must have done something wrong. But sometimes the issue is not discipline. Sometimes it is that modern food is designed in a way that makes sodium almost invisible. You do not need to become obsessed with numbers to make progress. For some people, especially those with heart failure, kidney disease, or specific medical conditions, sodium needs to be discussed carefully with a clinician. But for many people, the first step is not a perfect spreadsheet. It is awareness. Start with the foods you eat most often. If you eat bread every day, compare labels. Some breads carry a surprising sodium load, and switching to a lower sodium option may change your daily intake without changing your routine. If you use canned beans or vegetables, rinse them. If you eat soup, check the label before assuming it is light. If you use sauces or dressings, measure once, just to see what a normal pour actually looks like. If you eat out, ask for sauces on the side. Not because you can never enjoy them, but because restaurants often use far more sodium than home cooking. And if changing everything feels overwhelming, choose the 3 biggest sources and start there. That is the part I would say to someone in my own family. Do not try to fix your whole diet in one emotional weekend. Just find the sodium that is not giving you much pleasure anyway. The sauce you barely taste. The bread you do not care about. The packaged soup you eat only because it is easy. The snack you could replace without feeling deprived. That approach feels more realistic to me because food is not just fuel, especially as people age. Food is comfort, routine, memory, independence. Sometimes it is one of the few parts of the day that still feels familiar. So the goal should not be to make eating joyless. The goal is to remove the hidden load that may be stealing sleep. And this is not just about one night. If someone eats a salty meal today, they may notice more thirst, more swelling, or more nighttime urination tonight. But the deeper question is the pattern over time. After 2 or 3 weeks of reducing hidden sodium, does the body feel less puffy by evening? Do the legs feel lighter? Does the first bathroom trip happen later? Does sleep stretch a little longer? Those small shifts matter. Because when sodium goes down, the body may have less excess fluid to hold, less fluid to move later, and less work waiting for the kidneys at night. So the second fix is not dramatic, but it can be powerful. Reduce the hidden sodium that makes your body carry extra water into the evening. And once you understand that, the final piece becomes even more surprising. Because sometimes the fluid waking you up at night is not coming from your cup or your plate. It is coming from your legs. And once you understand that food can make the body carry extra fluid into the evening, the next discovery feels almost strange at first. Sometimes the fluid waking you up at night is not coming from your cup or your plate, but from your legs. This was the part that made me pause. Because I had heard people say, I barely drank anything after dinner, and I still woke up twice. And for a long time, I did not know what to do with that sentence. It sounded like the body was being unfair. It sounded like the rules did not make sense. If someone reduced evening fluids, watched what they drank, and still had to get up at night, what else were they supposed to change? Then I learned about fluid redistribution. During the day, gravity is not neutral. It is always working on the body, quietly pulling fluid downward. When you are standing, sitting, driving, watching television, working at a desk, or resting in a chair with your feet on the floor, fluid naturally tends to settle in the lower body. It can collect around the ankles, calves, and lower legs. Sometimes you can see it. The socks leave a deep ring. The ankles look thicker at night than they did in the morning. Shoes feel tighter. The legs feel heavy, stretched, or tired by late afternoon. But sometimes you cannot see much at all. There may be no dramatic swelling, no obvious warning sign, no moment where someone says, "My legs are full of fluid." And still, enough fluid may have shifted downward during the day to matter. Then bedtime comes. You lie down, and the entire direction of the problem changes. Suddenly, gravity is no longer holding that fluid down in the legs. The fluid begins moving back toward the center of the body. It returns into circulation. The heart receives more volume. The kidneys filter more volume. And the bladder begins to fill. That is the moment when the pattern starts to make sense. A bathroom trip at midnight may not be caused by the small sip of water you had at 9 p.m. It may be caused by fluid that spent the afternoon sitting in your lower legs, waiting for the moment you finally became horizontal. When I understood that, I stopped seeing nighttime urination as only a bladder story. For some people, it is also a circulation story. It is a gravity story. It is the body finishing at night what it could not finish during the day. And that is why the timing of the first wake-up can be so revealing. If someone goes to bed around 10 and wakes around midnight or 1 a.m., that can fit the timing of fluid returning from the legs and being processed by the kidneys. Not always, of course. But it is a pattern worth noticing. The practical goal is not to stop that fluid from moving. The body needs to move it. The goal is to move it earlier, while you are still awake. That is where leg elevation can help. If your ankles swell, your socks leave marks, or your legs feel heavy by evening, try elevating your legs for 30 to 45 minutes in the early evening. Not right when you are climbing into bed, because then the fluid may still be processed while you are asleep. The better window is usually 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. If bedtime is 10 p.m., think about 7 or 7:30. Recline on a couch. Put pillows under your calves. Use a comfortable chair with your feet raised. If it is safe and comfortable for you, raise the legs above heart level. The exact position is less important than the purpose. Give the fluid a chance to return while you are awake, so the kidneys can do some of that work before sleep begins. I like to think of it as moving the midnight problem into the evening. You are not fighting your body. You are negotiating with its timing. Compression stockings may also help some people, especially if fluid pooling in the legs is a regular pattern. They are worn during the day and removed before bed. The idea is simple. If less fluid pools in the legs during the day, less fluid rushes back at night. But this is not something I would guess at casually. If someone has circulation problems, diabetes, complications, leg pain, skin wounds, heart failure, or uncertainty about what level of compression is safe, that conversation belongs with a clinician. Still, the larger lesson is powerful. If you want to understand nighttime bathroom trips, do not only look at the night. Look at the afternoon. Look at how long you sit. Look at your ankles. Look at your socks. Look at whether your legs feel heavier by dinner. Because sometimes the bladder is not waking you up because you drank too late. Sometimes your legs are returning the water they carried all day. And if the legs can return water to the bloodstream after you lie down, then the real solution is not one isolated trick at bedtime, but a different rhythm for the entire day. That is the part I would want someone in my own family to understand. Not because it sounds complicated, but because it finally gives the problem a shape. When something wakes you up night after night, it starts to feel personal. It feels like your body is working against you. But sometimes the body is not betraying you. Sometimes it is following a pattern you were never taught to see. So if I had to turn everything into one simple daily approach, it would be this. Move the water earlier. Reduce what makes the body hold fluid, and give stored fluid a chance to move before sleep. The day begins in the morning, not at bedtime. When you wake up, that is the time to build your hydration foundation. A full glass of water early in the day can be more useful than trying to catch up late in the evening. Have water with breakfast. Keep drinking through mid-morning. Drink with lunch. Continue into the early afternoon. The point is not to force water into the body. The point is to stop saving the hardest hydration work for the worst time of day. By early afternoon, most of the day's fluid should already be behind you, unless your clinician has given you different instructions. Then, somewhere around the middle of the afternoon, begin to taper. That word still matters to me because it keeps the plan from becoming extreme. Tapering is not fear. Tapering is not dehydration. Tapering is simply a signal to the body that the heavy fluid load is done for the day. If you are thirsty, drink. If you take medication, use the water you need. If your mouth is dry, take small sips. But try not to make the evening the time when you suddenly remember you were behind all day. At dinner, pay attention to sodium, not with anxiety, but with curiosity. Ask yourself where the hidden salt came from today. Was it bread, soup, deli meat, frozen food, restaurant food, sauce, dressing, or packaged snacks? The goal is not to remove every enjoyable food from your life. The goal is to reduce the quiet sodium load that may be making your body carry extra fluid into the evening. And if your legs tend to feel heavy, your ankles swell, or your socks leave marks, give that fluid an earlier exit. Elevate your legs for 30 to 45 minutes, ideally 2 to 3 hours before bed. Let the body move some of that fluid while you are still awake. Let the kidneys do part of their work before the lights go out. That small shift may not look dramatic from the outside, but for the person who gets one longer stretch of sleep, it can feel enormous. Compression stockings may be worth discussing with a clinician if leg pooling is a regular issue. And if you take a water pill, such as furosemide, hydrochlorothiazide, or a similar medication, the timing may matter. But I would never change that alone. A better approach is to ask a clear question. Would taking this earlier in the day help reduce nighttime bathroom trips? That is the kind of question that turns frustration into a useful conversation. Now, I also want to be honest about the limits of this approach. If someone tries this carefully and nothing changes, that does not mean they failed. It may mean the cause is not mainly fluid timing, sodium, or leg redistribution. Nighttime urination can also come from conditions that deserve medical attention. Heart failure can cause fluid to build up during the day and return to circulation at night. If there is worsening swelling, shortness of breath when lying down, sudden weight gain, or known heart disease, that is not something to brush aside. Uncontrolled diabetes can make the kidneys pull extra water into the urine because the body is trying to remove excess glucose. If nighttime urination comes with unusual thirst, fatigue, weight changes, or high blood sugar, that needs to be evaluated. Sleep apnea is another piece many people miss. Loud snoring, waking unrefreshed, morning headaches, or breathing pauses noticed by a partner can all point to a sleep problem that may increase nighttime urine production. For men, an enlarged prostate can make the bladder empty poorly, so even a smaller amount of urine becomes enough to wake the body again. Overactive bladder can also create urgency that is not simply about fluid volume. Those are different problems, and they need different conversations. That is why I like a 2 to 3 week trial. Not one perfect day. Not one random night. 2 to 3 weeks of honest consistency. Drink earlier. Taper later. Reduce hidden sodium. Elevate the legs if swelling or heaviness is part of the pattern. Track what happens. Write down how many times you wake, what time the first trip happens, whether your legs were swollen, whether dinner was salty, and whether most of your water came early or late. A simple note can reveal patterns memory will miss. If the pattern improves, you have learned something valuable. If it does not move at all, you have also learned something valuable. You can take that information to a clinician and say, I tried changing the timing, sodium, and evening leg fluid. I did it consistently. The problem did not improve. That is a much stronger starting point than simply saying, I wake up at night. What I hope you take from this is not fear of water. I hope you take back a sense of control. Because waking up at night can make a person feel older than they are. It can steal confidence. It can turn sleep into something you no longer trust. But the body may not be asking you to drink less and suffer more. It may be asking you to listen differently. Start tomorrow morning. Drink earlier. Eat with more awareness. Notice your legs. Give your body time to process what it has been carrying. Then watch the pattern for 2 weeks. Your sleep has been giving you clues. Now you know where to look. Fun Kate. So if there is one thing I hope stays with you after this, it is this. Nighttime bathroom trips are not always a simple sign that you drank too much water before bed. Sometimes they are the final chapter of a story your body has been writing all day. And that, to me, is the deeper lesson. As we age, our bodies do not always speak loudly. They speak in patterns. A dry mouth in the evening, swollen ankles after dinner, a first bathroom trip 2 hours after falling asleep, a salty meal followed by a restless night, a medication schedule that no one has reviewed in years. These are not random details. They are clues. And when we ignore the clues, we often blame the wrong thing. We blame water, when the real issue may be timing. We blame the bladder, when the real issue may be fluid stored in the legs. We blame aging, when the real issue may be a habit that can be adjusted. That does not mean every case is simple. It does not mean lifestyle changes can replace medical care. If there is heart disease, diabetes, sleep apnea, prostate symptoms, severe swelling, or no improvement after a few weeks of consistent changes, that deserves a real conversation with a clinician. But it also means we should not surrender too quickly. The practical lesson is to become a better observer of your own body. Not fearful, not obsessive, just attentive. Tomorrow morning, begin earlier. Drink water when your body has time to process it. Let the afternoon become a taper instead of a catch-up period. Look at the sodium hidden in the foods you eat most often. Pay attention to your legs in the evening. If they swell or feel heavy, give that fluid a chance to move before bedtime, not after you are already asleep. And then track the pattern. Not for one night. For 2 weeks. Because sometimes the answer is not found in one dramatic change. Sometimes it is found in a quieter rhythm, repeated daily, until the body finally has less work to do in the middle of the night. To me, that is what healthy aging really means. It is not pretending the body never changes. It is learning how to work with those changes wisely, patiently, and with respect. Now I would love to hear from you. Do you usually wake up at night to use the bathroom? And if so, what time does it usually happen? Please share your answer in the comments so everyone can learn from each other's experience. And if this video helped you understand your body a little better, please subscribe to Healthy Aging Canada. Your support gives this channel more motivation to keep creating useful, honest, and practical videos for healthy aging.